to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Take a motion to approve the minutes of the regular public meeting of July 9th, 2018.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions from the board?
Just don't let them get in trouble.
Do you have one? There you go.
Okay, here's the cheap one.
I had actually one.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the floor? Hearing none.
First, second.
Mr. Secretary, please pull the board.
Commissioner Warren,
Aye.
Commissioner Clary,
Aye.
Commissioner Sloniker, aye. Commissioner Ginder,
Yes.
Commissioner Dutt,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks.
Yes.
And President Howard.
Yes.
Voting is 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Courtesy of the floor.
Mr. President,
Oh, sorry. Before I begin, courtesy of the floor.
we have items on the agenda tonight.
What's that?
We have zoning items on the agenda tonight.
What's that?
We have land development items on the agenda
Yes, I'm
tonight.
going to read the,
Okay.
thank you. I had it right here. Just didn't see it. It's all pink. Whitehall Township has an obligation to affirmably further fair housing and to review all land use applications in accordance with federal civil rights statutes. It's very hard to see. This includes taking meaningful actions that overcome patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities free from barriers that restrict access to the opportunity based on protected characteristics. The township, in its land use decisions, does not discriminate against persons based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, or familial status, and reviews all land use applications in accordance with federal civil rights statutes. Public comments made on the basis of bias and stereotype concerning people within these protected classes will not be taken into consideration by the township in its deliberations. Now, courtesy of the floor.
Mario Spagnoletti, please come up to the podium and state your name and address, please. I know you've never done this before.
Mario Spagnoletti, 351 Sumner Avenue. Today's paper had over and over again about the spill, raw sewage into the Little Lehigh. Being a Class A trout stream also is a source of drinking water. So my question maybe is to Commissioner Marks or the Engineer Clark. They got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cities, boroughs, and townships, what they're supposed to pay or to get this thing repaired. Now, I don't know if we're in the Little Lehigh watershed or not, but it's interesting to me is that Allentown paid $1 million, Lehigh County $13 million, South Whitehall $3 million, Copley Whitehall $15 million.
It's actually more than that, Mario.
So
We
where do we have that much more money than the other
We didn't
ones?
include the interceptor. Well, we took the administrative order very seriously, and we are one of the only municipalities that inspected every structure, commercial and residential, in the township and in Copley Borough. We're the only authority that really took proactive measures. We replaced 2 major interceptors, which is the majority of our infrastructure, our big infrastructure. We've done, God, over 1,000 chimney liners. We've done linings. We are one of the only authorities that have active crews that go out every day and do cameras and do jetting of our system. So we take it very seriously. Due to past boards, our current board, and our staff, we're very frugal. We've only increased rates twice within the last 10 years that I've been on that board, and they were very nominal rate increases at $5 per quarter. And financially, we're one of the, if you look at our pension liabilities and our financials, we are one of the most sound municipal authorities in the state of Pennsylvania, we were told. So it's a well-run organization. We take the work that we do very seriously, and we have a lot to be proud of.
Apparently, yeah,
We have a lot to be
good
proud of.
news.
I can assure you that there's an SSO taking place down in the city of Allentown right now after this recent storm.
It's like Lower McCountry, which I think most of this apparently a problem is happening mostly in that watershed where the Little Lehigh
Yeah,
and Alberta.
it's called the Western Lehigh Interceptor. The infrastructure wasn't built to handle all that capacity.
But what action are they taking? I mean,
Well, they've done study after study. They've had consulting engineers look at this. They've done model after model. It seems to me that they didn't take it very seriously. What they did was they went out and sort of put the cart before the horse because they knew the day of reckoning was coming. They didn't know how bad it would be, but after these recent storms, and I'm sure many more intense storms in the future, because they only seem to get worse, the situation's only gonna get worse.
well, I think the only good news about that is what the job that we're doing. I mean, if we're putting 15 million in and they're putting like 1,300,000, I mean, we must be doing 3-4 times better job than any other township.
We have a lot to be proud of. I mean, we take a lot of pride in what we do.
I'd
and-
like to thank everybody that's on the Copley Water Sewer Authority, that they must be doing a wonderful job. So thank you.
Ed Kientz?
My name's Ed Cates. I live on Pennsylvania Street in Cement, and the reason why I'm here tonight is
Your address, please? Your address, your full address?
5216 Pennsylvania Street. We have a problem up here in our neighborhood, and the problem is this. We have one person that goes to auto auctions and buys vehicles, mostly old clunker trucks, pickup trucks. And he parks them in the back of his property and also on Pennsylvania Street. They are current inspection with the new plates on it, okay? Some of these trucks have been there since last September. They have been moved twice in that period of time, once for 1 day and this past week for 3 days, and they're right back again. Okay, why can't we have some kind of ordinance that we cannot park cars that are that long? I mean, city of Allentown, I think is 36 hours you're allowed to park. Okay, I mean, people could come on from Allentown and park their clunkers there and walk away. Now, this person in the back, there's supposed to be an ordinance, no parking on grass. Is that correct?
It has to be macadam.
Okay, right now, there's 3 vehicles back there that are parked on the grass that don't operate at all. They're junk. Okay, nobody seems to care about them. And then out front, he has this huge truck. It's a bucket truck, okay? He always parks that out front. That one he uses on a daily basis, probably for his work. But on occasions, he backs this thing up and down Clock Alley in the back with the trailer on the back, and he'll park in the back on the grass, okay? Clock Alley is not many vehicles, but there are a lot of little kids playing back there. Why is he backing vehicles from the bottom of Clock Alley to the top? All right? This has been an ongoing problem for well over a year already with the junk out front in the house. I got two of his clunkers parked right outside my front door. Okay? I took pictures of everything. You know, just with the dates and everything else on them. And I talked to the guy, and he walks away. He doesn't want to hear anything, okay? And the neighborhood has gotten together. I brought a few other people with me tonight, but there's about eight of us up there. They're just tired with the situation. Why can't we have an ordinance? You're not allowed to park a vehicle longer than 36 or 48 hours in one spot. And the other thing is Egypt Quarry. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Their blasting is blasting. they set one off today. It literally shook the whole house, okay? Last week, they did one big blast and 3 small blasts. This is an ongoing thing. I mean, these literally rock your house. That's how bad the blasts are, the stone quarry. And when it first started, I called down here, and they told me, well, they got a permit for this, but they're only supposed to blast once a week. And they're supposed to let you know in advance what day it would be. Well, I've never heard anything. And sure as heck, they're going more than once a week anymore. And these blasts that probably today had to be 0.1 on the Richter scale. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. And nobody seems to care about it.
Have you contacted us about either of these?
I called down the township when this started, when they first started mining back there and blasting.
When was that?
Probably about 1 year ago. And it's only gotten worse.
Okay, so you contacted us about the blast?
Yes, I did. Yes, I spoke to, at that time was Mayor Hosera.
What about the cars and the concern you have about that? Have you contacted us about that at any?
Yes, I did. Several times I've talked. I've talked to Jack Myers, I talked to the mayor, the ex-mayor, talked to the police chief. The police chief doesn't want to hear about it. He said if it's new inspection on it, they don't care. That's what they tell me.
So,
I mean, it's like a junkyard around there anymore.
are you talking about them parking on the property itself?
I'm talking about his junk in back of the house that's parked on the grass, and I'm talking about when he buys vehicles, he parks them on Pennsylvania Street because he has nowhere else to park them. And he'll leave them there for months on end. Won't move them.
Can we get a response from our police chief or our development officer, Mike? Do you have any, are you aware of the situation? Do you have any reason to believe there's a violation?
They've sent a few people around.
Is there a violation there if he's parking them on the street?
No, there is none. But why can somebody park for months on end, junk or truck?
You
I
said
mean,
that they're
it's
licensed and inspected.
right. City of Allentown has a time limit. City of Bethlehem. Everybody has some kind of time limit, how long you can park a vehicle in one spot. Why does Whitehall Township have it? People from Allentown can bring their cars up there or their old junkers and park them and walk away and forget about it.
Because they chopped the tire, so they move it a foot.
And did you say he has junk around the property?
Well, there's pictures of, there's an old smashed up pickup truck up in the back. The zoning, somebody from zoning was up there during the winter. And they sort of corrected some of the situation, but it's getting to be right back where it used to be. Okay, now I mean there's a trailer, there's an old van, and there's a pickup truck that's all smashed in, all parked on the grass up there. And according to the last information I got, you're not allowed to park on the grass in Whitehall Township. Is that correct?
If you will leave your contact information, I'll make sure I contact you tomorrow and we'll be up there.
Okay, and that thing with Egypt Quarry has to be checked into. It's starting to get out of hand, and those blasts are quite long and loud. Terrible. And I don't know if you're aware about the land dump up there, but some of the New Jersey dump trucks are coming over down 329 over the bridge and up through the back anymore instead of coming this way.
Yeah.
Has anybody checked on that?
They're,
Because I smell the garbage every morning that's being dumped there. I mean, it's 5:30 in the morning, you can smell it.
so you're saying you're smelling the fill now?
Yes. And they're still bringing the items there. Whatever they're bringing it through the back door now, instead of using the front door.
Mrs. Rackus, would you like to comment?
And
on
like Jeannie McNeil says, a good neighbor. I don't think it's a good neighbor. I've been living there 22 years, and I've been fighting from day one against that there landfill. And I've been to many meetings here in the past over it. And it got to the point I just gave up anymore because nobody wanted to be bothered with anything. That's the way I've seen it.
I would add, as a private residence, one time I thought I smelled something. I called Pennsylvania DEP. The first question they asked me is, where do you live? Do you live there? And I said, no, I live over in Egypt.
I didn't hear that.
I said, they asked where I lived,
Oh, okay.
and I didn't live there. I was on public property there.
Okay.
They told me that I could not formally, they couldn't record my concern because I wasn't a resident there. And I think the same applies for the township. So if there's something that you think is really out of place,
Yeah, but the point I'm saying is, somebody could go to an auction, anybody, they could buy 10 vehicles and park them on that street and walk away from it.
we're talking about the quarry. or
Okay.
The
right.
dumping. Yeah, sorry.
Lee, can you respond to the questions about, let's let our,
I haven't dealt with
Development
Mr.
director.
Keynes, but I know Melissa has. Hi, Mr. Keynes, I'm Lee Rackus. This is an ongoing situation where it gets better, it gets worse. Melissa's been up there several times. The cars that were parked there, I mean, now we have the regulation saying you can't park on the grass, but in the past we did not. You know, that's a relatively new ordinance.
Right.
So there were cars, I'm sure, parked there in the past. So Welcome will look at it again. It's an ongoing issue. As far as the quarry, we have no jurisdiction whatsoever over the blasting. I'm not sure who he spoke with here, but we can't control when they blast, how frequently they blast. That's all regulated through the Department of Labor and Industry of Pennsylvania. And if you have complaints about damage to your property or the intensity of the blast, they have to be registered through that department. We can't do anything about that.
Not a thing.
Unfortunately, no, we cannot preempt it.
All right, well, that's
I
what
would
I have to
ask
say.
you to leave contact information with me, or if you want to get a piece of paper from Lee and write it down for us, we'll stop up tomorrow,
Okay,
okay?
but it's got to be something done about it. It's getting out of hand. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Diana?
Okay.
So you don't want to state anything then?
No.
Linda, Linda Bell?
I'm their next door neighbor, so it's the same situation. When that last one goes on, the whole house shakes and
I'm sorry, ma'am, you can't talk back there. We try to record it, and you'd have to come up if you're gonna make statements, that's all.
Lee, which quarry are we talking about? New Enterprises, or are we talking about New Enterprises?
Enterprise.
They did have a blast today.
Yes.
Is that the old Kohler quarry there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're.
You have to state your name and address, please.
My name is Linda Bell. I'm at 5214 Pennsylvania Street, right next door. No one told me when I was looking to buy a property there that there was a quarry that blasted on a regular basis. I probably would have not purchased a residence there if I would have known that ahead of time, but that's history. Right now, when the blasting takes place, the property, if you're standing outside, your yard shakes. If you're inside the house, your complete house shakes. My pictures on the wall are crooked. I have to watch where I put breakables because when I'm at work during the day, I'm afraid that when I get home with the shaking of the house, and I never know when the blasting is going to take place, I'm afraid that something will fall and break. So it's that bad. The parking is one thing that, with all the cars along the street, across the street, there is a lady who lives, and she's not here, but her yard is, because her house is off and she's up higher, her yard is like a big hump, and then there's the curbing, and these cars are right up against that curbing, and the gentleman that mows her yard, because she can't mow it, can hardly mow in that area of her yard because the cars are in the way, and he cannot mow either sideways or up and down. It's very, very difficult. I mean, it's more than just the sight of these old cars that there's only, when someone is parked on the other side of, which is in front of our buildings, which is where the parking usually is instead of the other side, when with the trucks on the other side that never move, it's one car traffic up and down that street. You have to wait until somebody, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be two-way traffic on that street. So, but I'm concerned about the blasting. If there's nothing we can do about it, that really is a shame because I've often wondered if it's doing foundation damage to our homes. you know, internal structural damage. Who knows? It's very severe the way the property, outside property shakes as well as the whole house inside. And we have 4 units to our building, and it's shaking the whole building.
I mean, we don't have jurisdiction there, but as Lee said, you can contact the Pennsylvania's Labor and Industry Department, and they can, you can lodge a complaint
Well, I
there.
didn't know
And
that
I
until
suggest you
tonight.
do.
I didn't know if the township could do anything about that or not, so,
I suggest you do call them, okay?
yeah, okay.
Lee,
Thank you.
Do we know if they're doing any monitoring at any residences in that area or any properties?
No, they don't notify us. They all do it on their own. When people contact them, they have a whole system in place, they will come out.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, moving on to public hearing and voting on ordinances. Yes,
I came a little late. I had a
Yep, you can.
absolutely.
come up.
Please come up, state your name and your address, please. No worries.
My name is Robert Klein, live at 3912 Old Country Circle, Whitehall. I don't know if it's two situations or one combined. The retention pond at Mechanicsville Road and Old Country Circle. For the last 3 years now, I've been down to zoning complaining about having the weeds cut. And basically they tell me, well, they go out and site them and eventually they get it taken care of. But it's the only retention pond in Whitehall Township that is a mess, totally a mess. I have pictures of it and everything else. I don't know who owns the pond, or the retention pond, to take care of it. But it is hurting our neighborhood in resale of houses, and it's just a blight. The second thing is, at 3946 Mechanicsville Road, the house was under sheriff's sale. And when this person left, he took all, well, not all, but there is furniture, trucks, boat, all kind of stuff behind the retention pond that is just a blight. As you drive through there, you can see the garbage there, and at one time there was a sign, free, take whatever you want. But now there's like 2 sofas, tables, chairs, and like I said, a boat and a car that have been abandoned. And apparently the Bank of America is in charge of that property. I'm wondering if we can't get somebody to look into getting Bank of America to come in there and clean that garbage up. I don't, I'm just asking for
I'll
your
let Lee
help.
answer part of the first question. The second part is, I mean, we have these issues where people abandon their houses, and obviously with, not as much recently, but years ago with the foreclosure issue we had in this country, the banks don't care. They're on the hook for this stuff, and it's very difficult to get the banks to come in and clean that stuff up. But I'll let Lee speak to you can speak to that part too, Lee, if you would like.
I'll talk to you in here. 3946 owns both pieces. They were merged together with a subdivision that was presented to the township. We're very familiar with the basin, we're very familiar with the property. We've had judgments against them, we've had court cases repeatedly against him, he did not show up. The township has done everything they can do right now, short of actually going and getting an injunction to go into the property and clean it up, which is a very expensive prospect, and I don't suspect we're gonna do that at this point. The bank just took it over relatively recently. We do have notices against the bank. Whether they'll respond or not, I do not know, but we have judgments against the owner. We have several judgments against the owner. Anytime you've seen that basin cut over the past 5 years, that's been your tax dollars cutting it, because they have not cut it. We went through a motion where the county put the basin up for sheriff's sale. We fought the county, because the basin's supposed to be combined with the house, so that there's an asset associated with that basin. It's problematic, to be sure. But we are doing everything that we can at this point. I know it doesn't look like it, but in America, the good thing is a man's home is his castle. The bad thing is a man's home is his castle. For the government to be able to come in and just run roughshod over your property and do things without going through the proper channels that cost some time and money, it doesn't happen. So it's not gonna be quick, but we are aware that it did transfer, we are moving forward, and we have been maintaining it, not the Cadillac maintenance, but the economy maintenance that your tax dollars pay for. Property's been lien several times, we've had judgments, like I said, we've gone to court. It doesn't show up for court, never showed up for court,
I can understand.
so.
Well, let me ask the township this then. Since there was a sign there that said free, take this, can we send some township employees with dump trucks down there?
Jackson,
Throw it
you
all
can
in,
answer that.
throw it
'cause
all
I don't
in.
think that's gonna be.
Throw
that's
it
a
all
legal
in and get it
question.
out of there.
No, I don't think that that's gonna be, but I'll let the lawyer answer that, not me.
You know, that's something that the township would have to think about. That there's all kinds of liability that might be involved there. We don't know who put that sign up. There, you know, I would not recommend the township go straight in and take things out. We can talk about it. I can talk with Lee about what the options are, but if it's just junk on private property, that would have to be an expense that the township would have to decide it wants to undertake.
Well, even when we would go out and try and cut, the owner would come out and threaten the cutter. We had to have the police accompany the cutter at the last cutting. Not the owner, the former owner who was occupying the structure. It's problematic.
Lee, are you aware some municipalities charge on foreclosures, banks, a monthly fee? Do you know what that's
Yeah,
about?
for vacant property registration, yes.
And what's the purpose of that fee? Is it,
I believe it's to keep the contacts current. There are agencies that do that. We were prepared to move forward with that. We didn't go forward. We had to go out to bid for the companies, and right at the point where we were gonna do that, the company changed hands. I just didn't go back through and redo everything.
but that doesn't put the liability on us. Now we are the maintainers of that property. That's,
No,
but
the
that
whole
is,
point of that
yeah.
is, in my mind, to keep the contact current, and so that you have, you know, because you're right, banks are hard to get a hold of, they're hard to nail down. You cite a bank, good luck getting the magistrate to serve them notice, because they won't. There's nobody logical to serve, and the CEO of the bank is in, you know, Texas somewhere. They're not gonna do that.
It's more of a nuisance fee to the bank to have, incite them to do something with the property, I would guess.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Anybody else for courtesy of the floor? Thank you. Moving on to public hearing and voting on ordinances, bill number 17-2018. An ordinance vacating a portion of American Street from Wint Lane approximately 140 feet to an unnamed alley, vacating the unnamed alley in its entirety, Fullerton area of Whitehall Township, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. Is the first hearing on that, first reading on that. Bill number 18-2018, an ordinance amending ordinance 3073, establishing campaign contribution limits of the Township of Whitehall to eliminate the requirement of filing of campaign finance reports with the Board of Ethics, to require filing the same with the township, and to require distribution of the ordinance establishing campaign contribution limits to candidates. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the floor? Hearing none.
Does the township still review those, or the Ethics Commission, to make sure that they don't exceed?
The ethics board will only look at it if there
there's
is a
request?
complaint.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please pull the board.
Commissioner Ginder,
Yes?
Commissioner Dutt,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks.
Yes.
Commissioner Swanager, aye. Commissioner Clary,
Aye.
Commissioner Warren,
Aye.
and President Howard.
Yes.
Passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Bill number 19-2018, an ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a proposal for purchase of equipment for the 2018 Chevrolet Tahoe four-wheel drive vehicle for the fire department in accordance with section 3.20 of the Home Rule Charter, which requires authorization of acquisitions in excess of $25,000 by ordinance. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the, oh,
Is
sorry.
this replacing the current?
No, this is the equipment that goes on the Tahoe that we bought earlier this
Okay,
year.
all right.
The sirens, the lights, the,
Fantastic. Thank you.
Any questions from the floor? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please pull the board.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Dutt?
yes.
Commissioner Marks?
Yes.
Commissioner Ginder?
Yes.
Commissioner Sloniker? Aye. Commissioner Clary?
Aye.
President Howard?
Yes.
Bill passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Bill number 20-2018, so again, first hearing, an ordinance amending the Whitehall Township Codified Ordinances, Chapter 27 zoning by amending the general regulations to permit adaptive reuse for affordable housing as a permitted use in the C1 and C2A zoning districts. Bill number 21-2018, an ordinance deferring the required installation of both curbing and sidewalks along the Lehigh Street frontage of the Arlington Cemetery subdivision as required in Chapter 21, Section 407 of the Codified Ordinances of Whitehall Township. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the floor? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please pull the board.
Commissioner Sloniker, nay. Commissioner Ginder?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Clary?
Aye.
Commissioner Marks?
No.
Commissioner Dutt?
No.
And President Howard.
No.
Bill is defeated 4-3.
Public hearing and voting on resolutions. Resolution number 3022, a resolution transferring funds within the general fund and liquid fuels fund to provide for appropriations to meet unanticipated current fiscal year expenses constituting budget transfer 18-01. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the floor? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please pull the board.
Commissioner Dutt?
Yes.
Commissioner Marks?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Clary?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloniker, aye. Commissioner Ginder?
Yes.
And President Howard.
Yes.
Resolution passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution number 3023, a resolution amending the agreement with the Newport Group as the township recommended 457B deferred compensation plan permitting installment payments for all terminated participants. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the floor? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Marks?
Yes.
Commissioner Sloniker, aye. Commissioner Clary?
Aye.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Ginder?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutt?
Yes.
President Howard?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution number 3024, a resolution conditionally approving the minor subdivision plan of 4303 Spruce Street, located at 4303 Spruce Street, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, index number 1916-18. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a couple. There we go. There is existing curb here from what I saw, is that correct, Frank?
That is correct.
Okay.
You can identify yourself for the
My
record.
name is Ryan Abdouche. I am the owner. Me and Justin Alco sitting.
An address, please?
4303 Spruce Street, Whitehall, PA.
Now, according to the waiver on sidewalks
Yes.
that you're asking for, oh no,
Doesn't come up right now.
yeah, that's not here on this.
This is just subdivision.
This is just a subdivision, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. All right, no, I have nothing else on this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the floor? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Dutt?
Yes.
Commissioner Clary?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloniker? Aye. Commissioner Ginder?
Yes,
Commissioner Marks?
Yes.
President Hauer?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution number 3025, a resolution authorizing the Township of Whitehall's authority to proceed with grant applications to fund a consultation and other steps to obtain approval under the National Register of Historic Places of the area known as and surrounding the Thomas Iron Works neighborhood. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Yeah, Jeff, do any of these grants that we're applying for require matching funds that we would?
I'd have to consult to see. I believe some do and some don't.
I think it'd be useful to know how much we're applying for and what percent would be on the hook for. I know some that he is applying for probably do not. They're straight out grants and.
Yes.
That's great.
I believe those are the first ones we're gonna go after.
All right, well, I guess if going forward, if there's some that the township would have to require a match, I'm sure you'll communicate that.
Definitely let you know. Yes.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
yeah, I have one. Have we checked in with the federal government, if we take a grant for this, what is down the road that the federal government can come back on us and say, you will now do this because you took that?
That never happened before.
Yeah, I know. Excuse me, I just don't trust those people.
And what's
Have we
the-
looked into this when we take this grant money? What's gonna come back at us as, well, you took this, now you're on the line for that.
That we do not know.
I think before we spend one penny of township residents' tax dollars on anything that involves, where this can come back on us, that now you will do this, that should actually have to be researched. I truly, truly, truly believe that.
And
Because it's happened before.
And I'm not sure if you can actually predict that.
Well, I know you can't predict anything because they can come in and hammer down anytime they want, but is there anything there at this point that they're gonna say, you took this grant money, now this affects what you're doing over here? Has anybody really looked into this? I mean, this is the law and this is how it sets. That's my point.
Jack, with other grants we've gotten in the township, I mean, I know we've applied for many grants, but after that, if we are awarded a grant, is there some other documentation then at that point that we have to kind of sign?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
There's
so-
agreements that have to be executed.
So even if we were to apply and say something goes back to Phil's point that, we're required to do something that we're just not ready to do, we do have another opportunity at that point.
Oh,
to,
absolutely, before you sign the thing. I mean, and if there I would be sure that our solicitor would point those things out.
I think we're all a little gun shy up here because of what's happened in the recent past and.
It's not even gun shy, it happened.
Well, that's what I mean.
It
It's like
actually happened
we're
to
gun-
us,
I'm
and
gun
I'm
shy
not
because of
gun
it,
shy,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
concerned.
Right.
And you are too, Dennis, I know you are, everybody up here is.
Yes.
Just on the one instance, they said, okay, you took grant money, and, now you abide by this.
So there is some kind of legal thing within that grant application that we would have to look at to.
Well, yeah, they give you they'll either award or deny your grant application, and once the application, if the application's approved, there will be agreements which need to be executed, and outline everything that the Commonwealth requires depending upon the amount of the award.
At what point can you walk away from it?
You don't have to sign the document and then you don't get the grant. I would think, if there were anything that, prior to executing, or you would have to, identify those things before you'd sign it.
And
So everybody knows what
Jack,
they're
correct me
getting.
if I'm wrong, if you, for any grant, you have to perform prove that you performed, and then you request the money, and then they give you the money. They're not gonna hand you a check because they awarded you.
Most of the grants are like that. Jordan Parkway was a classic exception to the rule where PennDOT paid for the things before we had to pay. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Most of the times it's dollar in and then you get your dollar or 50 cents or whatever your match is.
My problem isn't us performing. I know we can perform and live up to our end. We've done it all along. My problem is what the government's gonna come back to us and say, you took this grant money, now you're in this hole over here.
Yeah, I fully support the program.
I
mean,
do,
We've
I
been
do,
through
I
it.
just-
I mean, again, I just wanted to clarify that there are ways we can step back if that's the case, if there's gonna be some, extra requirements on us that we, don't anticipate at this point, but then see down the road if we can just walk away, and I'd rather walk away than put that burden on anybody, especially, something like this with the National Register. So.
Right.
Let me add, it is unusual, but it is possible that the grant application itself could contain language saying, if you're granted this, you will abide. I think the most common way is that there's a long contract that you get afterwards, and that may be an addition. But I think, given the concern everybody has, it would be worthwhile, once you've, completed the applications and you're ready to send them in, to have just a quick look to see if there's anything that by signing that becomes an obligation.
I think the first thing we need to do is, if we do get accepted for a grant, we bring it right to you and go through that language, and seeing if there's anything in there, we bring it to the board and we all decide whether we want to do it or not.
Well, I think what the solicitor's saying is that let's take a look at that document before we
Even apply.
sign on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it might
The application itself.
darn well have
The first thing
something
you
in
send
there.
in.
Okay.
But that should be a quick turnaround, to bullet point what you're agreeing to.
Sure.
So going this far is going to cost us how much? In applying for the grant?
Nothing.
Well, nothing ever costs nothing. I mean, there's time involved and everything.
Yeah,
else.
but I mean,
But must the attorney get involved in this? Is the applying?
Given what you've said, before you send the application in, I take it that this is going to go to the authority, the township is going to prepare it, and it's going to be submitted through the authority, who acts as a local agency for the state. And if that application is presented to the authority, before that goes to the authority, then legal should take a look at it just to see whether it binds the township, just the application binds the township.
We're not gonna be in this for $10,000
No.
to apply for it.
No, well, not the legal fees, certainly not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Not to spend $10,000 and all of a sudden it's on paper that, oh, this isn't where we
No.
wanna go.
No, I don't know how much some applications can cost a lot of time and effort to put together. I don't know what this particular application requires, but as far as a review of whether by signing the application, the township becomes bound in some way, that can be very quick from a legal point of view.
Okay.
That's all I have.
What are the time constraints on this, to get this in before it's too late? Or
well, I know one of the applications is by September 1st. So I think what we need to do is get that application to you so that you can look at before we actually even do it.
Okay, and we can turn that around quickly.
Yes.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the floor? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please pull the board.
Commissioner Dutt?
Yes.
Commissioner Clary?
Aye.
Commissioner Marks?
Yes.
Commissioner Ginder?
Yes.
Commissioner Sloniger, aye. Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
And President Howard.
Yes.
Resolution passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
We'll go to Board of Commissioners reports. We'll start with you, Joe.
Just that everybody read the morning call today, and it showed what Copley Whitehall did, to meet this administrative order. Kudos to the staff across the street. A lot of things going on right now, a lot of moving pieces. That's really all I got.
Jeff?
Yes. A couple things. First of all, on August 25th of this month, there will be a walking historic tour of Egypt up on the main street, and it will be held at 10 a.m. It's 2.5 hours, and it's 1.3 miles. It's free to members of the Historical Society, and $5 donation fee is requested for non-members. Okay? Second thing, as going with the Thomas Ironworks neighborhood, we have a walking and possibly a driving tour of the Thomas Ironworks neighborhood on October 27th from 11 to 4, starting at the Hockendackwa Presbyterian Church. There will be local guides that are going to be leading this, and the Historic Society is also involved in it as well. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Ginder?
Yeah, I saw again on the EAC minutes, they still don't have financial reports to know exactly where they're at. What can we do to get them the right numbers?
Get that to them this week.
Okay. The other one I have is Frank.
Yes, sir.
The retaining, not the retaining wall, I'm sorry. The restricting heavy trucks that are down there. Where are we at with our expert?
Do we want to discuss that later, or?
We can?
No, I think we were gonna do this during the mayor's report here. We wanted to talk with you about that then. We can do it now.
It's up to you if you want to wait till the mayor's report.
Our traffic engineer completed a recent study on that. Doesn't show a whole bunch of truck traffic on there. We think it'll be a good baseline, but it's not going to be justification, particularly at this point with Race Street under construction. We don't have any numbers other than what we've done just recently, and it doesn't justify anything, but it does give us a baseline so that when we start seeing more traffic on there, we'll be able to understand exactly to what extent we're going to have that problem, and at that point, we may be able to take action, but it's not going to warrant anything right now. And if you have any other information, sing out.
Yeah, basically what we're looking at now as a team approach between the structural engineering, the traffic engineering, and also the township just for access and ongoing maintenance. We're looking to put together a kind of a comprehensive approach to get baseline data, both as Pete did with traffic, amount of trucks and frequency, and then from a structural standpoint, an analysis of the wall now as it sits, and then in the future we can be able to do it again based on the baseline data. The other component is the physical data in the field, where we're looking to establish by survey the control points on the wall itself. So if there's any movement in the future, we can go out and document that there's been movement, and that way we can start tracing the whys and wherefores of why it's moving. So right now, as the mayor said, we really can't do a whole lot actively, but we can certainly put our foot down to see where we are, what's the condition of the wall, any kind of movement, and have that data ready to go in the future. As conditions change, we'll be able to react to it.
Will it be too late once the Race Street Bridge is redone in a few years? To do anything? You know, that's my point.
I understand. We can't put the cart before the horse, though. We have to wait and react to it.
Because once they redo Race Street Bridge, everybody's gonna be waving by at us. Well, it's too late to do anything now.
Well, again, we can't do anything until we have the traffic there. The only thing we can do now is to establish what we have in the field, and if there's any changes to that structure, when it becomes loaded more, if you will, for lack of better terms, then we'll be able to react to it. And then we can prove that, well, hopefully nothing happens, but if something does, we'll be able to prove the extent of the changes.
See, my only problem with that is, by that time, it's too late. The wall's damaged. And now it's our bill.
Wasn't the wall damaged with the current traffic?
Was the wall damaged with the current traffic?
Yeah, I mean.
Not to my knowledge, I haven't seen it. We're waiting for the
I
structure.
mean, the wall needed repairing.
Well, there's some spalling, I know, on the top part of the wall, but I
No,
don't know
what did
structurally.
the $1.2 million?
Well, yeah, what led to the entire fiasco that we're in right now
Well,
was the current traffic, and
well,
I understand there's more that, you know, there's
Right, well-
fingers pointed both ways, but,
well, the first wall was over 100 years old.
right,
It was built by the railroad, and their basic philosophy back then was build it big, dumb, and heavy, all right? And you didn't have the frequency, you didn't have the loading on that wall. And not only that, but you're asking something man-made to hold back nature. And there's water coming down through that soil, there's movement, there's soil movement, there's seismic activity, there's everything, all right? And a wall is only gonna last so long, same as a bridge only lasts so long, or a road, all right? And, you know, had the original wall exceeded its lifespan? Perhaps. And that's where the second wall had to be buttressed and put up against it. You know, that's at least a 50 to 100-year design on that wall, all right? So, you know, you're looking at something that had not been maintained for almost 100 years.
yeah.
And now it's been augmented, and we're gonna work with that. But again, nothing's gonna last forever, especially when you're trying to hold back nature.
Right, but again, you know, what we were asking, I guess, during this time is that what can we do, or what measures can we do to protect that, what is now the asset of Whitehall Township? And I guess the answer is nothing
Well, there's something.
until we get some other traffic on there. And, but again, to me, it's not even the new potential traffic that we could have on that road. I think there's plenty of traffic, whether it's heavy truck traffic or just traffic in general, that is gonna deteriorate the conditions on that road and that wall. Because I think the conditions that, as they stand up until, 3 years ago, deteriorated that wall. Not just the traffic, but, like you said, the other water issues and nature and all that other stuff. So why can't we, as a township, do what we need to do to protect that?
Well, go ahead.
Well, to some degree, that supposedly happened. The original wall was there, and it had deteriorated. They didn't just repair the wall, they put a new wall, new buttresses in front of that. Now, whether from an engineering standpoint or not, whether that solves it, but it's as if they had done what you said. They put a new wall in front of the old wall to hold it in place. So it's not the same wall repaired, it's a thicker wall that should be in place. Now, whether that in fact is sufficient, I don't know, but it was not just filling the cracks that's been done, and the litigation ended up with an improved wall, something that was not there before, and that was built supposedly to hold up to this. But that's an engineering view as to whether it has done that.
Well, I guess if we're gonna ask the questions, I'll ask the questions now, but, I got the letter, and I read through the letter, from PennDOT, and now, I guess they're saying everything's been repaired the way it's supposed to be repaired, and we're walking away, it's now the township's responsibility, right?
Well, yeah, but the township's doing two.
Given the other conditions that are in the agreement.
The township's doing two things. As Frank said, first, the structural engineer who went out and looked at it on behalf of the township before all these repairs were made is coming back, and he's going to go out to see whether the repairs that PennDOT was supposed to make have in fact been made. And that's just bringing things up to present. Then for the future, because there's some question that PennDOT has to share in maintenance costs if they're beyond a certain degree of failure, they're going out to map the wall and the facilities so that if in the future we think PennDOT, something's happened and has to be fixed and PennDOT has to kick in, we have the facts to show that things have changed. That this isn't just, that's about all we can do, I think, at this time. Plus, they aren't just monitoring the wall itself, but they're monitoring the truck traffic so we can determine, whether there's been an increase in truck traffic that we can point to. But
But the letter I got that says, as such, maintenance of the subject retaining wall is now transferred to the township pursuant to the joint stipulation and settlement of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission's September 21st, 2017 order. But we're gonna go out and inspect it and make, because that's my question.
There's another part to that, okay?
Yeah.
We have the maintenance, that's ours now. We own it, it's our headache to maintain it. But there's also another stipulation, that if there's failure of that wall to within 4 inches out of plumb, then PennDOT has to participate within a certain amount of time. I don't.
24 years, yes.
PennDOT has to participate. Well, how do we tell if it's four inches out of plumb?
It is already.
I know, what's that?
It is already.
It is?
When you look at the rails from up on Lehigh Street, you could, there's a gap.
I can't, yeah.
There's a lean there between the rails of almost 4 inches now.
But they put that marshmallow fluff in there.
When they put the fluff in the road. Now, the point here is, a portion of this wall failed. All right, there's a couple segments to this wall. Now, a segment of this wall failed. And the only segment of this whole wall over to Ray Street that PennDOT gave away or forced on us was the segment that failed. The good segments that never moved, shifted, or had to be rebuilt, there's no problem there. They gave us the old maid.
The section that they gave us.
The section that they forced on us is the only section that really failed. They kept the good sections over by Ray Street. What they gave us is the section that failed, where they had to reinforce and redo the wall. So there's a reason that section failed, but all the other sections down to the Ray Street Bridge, none of them failed. They're all in very good shape yet. They gave us the one that failed. Not gave us, they forced it on us. And that's my point, and I believe everybody else's point. That section failed. There's a reason it failed, and I mean it failed miserably when it let loose at the bottom.
I wasn't aware, I mean, I wasn't involved with this back then, so I'm.
There's a reason that section of the wall failed. And none of the other sections failed. And that's our whole point of trying to protect that section now, because something had to happen with up on Lehigh Street and the structure under it to make that one section fail, but none of the other sections that PennDOT kept down to the Ray Street Bridge, none of those were failed and had to be rebuilt. So we got the old maid, and now we shouldn't be worried about what traffic's doing to that? It failed already before any of the other sections failed.
And it's not really, and again, I don't want it to make it just about the wall, too. I mean, we had this gigantic sinkhole open up just a few hundred feet from that wall.
Yep.
It's not just the wall. What we were asking and that really kind of precipitated this conversation again, that we needed to get some sort of answer, some sort of resolution to what we can do on that road. Because I get it. I understand setting a baseline and understanding where we're at now. But if anyone is under any delusions that FedEx is not going to run their trucks up over Ray Street, I mean, it's ridiculous. And I think we owe it to the taxpayers here, since we're on the hook for this wall, but also to the homeowners in that section of the township.
And Dennis, I think we're doing what we can to try to guarantee that we can determine what's going on out there in a way that we hadn't undertaken previously. And I don't know what else we can do at this point, other than to prepare to be able to evaluate that if there are any changes from where we are right now. I'd rather we don't have the wall, and so would everybody else here, but we do.
Well,
The court's forced it on us. So.
I've asked this question for 3 years and never got a straight answer. I realize on here that it says that, you know, they did a survey and they're marking survey monuments. That's to watch how the wall moves, okay? But the land survey, we never definitively found out whose land this wall sits on, other than PennDOT and the PUC telling us it's on township property.
We've never seen the survey. When this wall was given to us, we've never seen the new survey.
What we have is a document, a picture of the survey results. That's all that I know that we have.
Since when do you get a piece of land given to you and not have an official, and when we sat in that meeting in Allentown, that attorney lady from Altoona, she more or less looked at the PennDOT people and said, you will survey that before you lay it on them, so to
So
speak.
who owns it? Can you?
And
just
we've never seen a proper survey.
The plan that it is solved today, Carl had it, we just got it recently, shows where the new wall section is, that the right-of-way line is bumped out around that new section
It
of
goes
wall.
right around the
Okay, so
problem area.
if you picture the road up above and the 33-foot customary right-of-way that, you know, that was associated with these older roads from PennDOT, and that used to be a PennDOT road, all right? 33 feet is the width of the right-of-way from the Ray Street Bridge north to the new wall. And then it juts in towards the railroad, you know, more towards the river, if you will. Goes north, the length of the wall, then cuts back in and resumes the normal 33-foot right-of-way. Now, this was all done by PennDOT, and I didn't know about it. I don't think anybody up there knew about it, all right? But that was transferred to the township as right-of-way.
When was this recorded, Frank? How can this be
I don't
done?
know any more about it.
I mean, yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm trying not to laugh, but it sounds so ridiculous. Okay, we can all admit it's ridiculous, right?
My understanding of this, and this is from reading through the records, is that from ancient documents and deals, the wall, where it stood for a long time, was the responsibility of the township. And there was, when this began to fail, there was litigation, and little by little other parties became added to this. The determination was that that wall had to be substantially improved, that there, you know, there had to be, you know, buttresses or whatever built up to do that. And the litigation was such that there was a question of who was going to be, was that $1.8 million the township's responsibility? Was it PennDOT's responsibility? Was it, you know, was the railroad involved? And there was ultimately a stipulation approved, which provided for PennDOT to pay the $1.8 million to build the wall, to make other repairs on the wall, but for the township to own the wall. You know, it wasn't going to be a wall that was owned half by one
Can
party.
we go
and half-
back to land transfer, though? Is that legal for them to transfer?
I have to go back and look, as I understand it, that's part of the stipulation, is that plan. So,
We didn't stipulate to that at the meeting in Allentown.
We didn't agree
They were
to
supposed
anything
to
with the
do a
PUC.
survey of that wall, and we were to know who originally owned the land under. They're saying you owned the wall. Well, really, I still believe the railroad owned it. But I only go by plain English. I don't have a large vocabulary like some of those people do. But they were supposed to give us a survey
we have a survey.
showing that's our land now, here are the pins and marks on it. And exactly where that is staked out, like any other time somebody gives you or you buy a piece of land, it has to be surveyed.
You know, maybe it would be better if the board wants a history of this laid out at some.
We have the
We
history.
know the history.
I've been through
Well,
the
all I can
history a
say- all I
million
can say,
times,
there's-
and
we have
there
a-
is still no survey as to
We were
who owned the
assured
land
that
and
a
where it came
condition of
from.
this agreement was that we would be provided a land survey and we would be told absolutely whose land this wall sat on. Now, my understanding of what you just told me is that there was a deed recorded after the fact.
I didn't say anything
Okay.
about a deed being
Or-
recorded.
Okay, well, something was transferred to us.
Well, the stipulation, I believe, has plans attached to it. And I think the thing to do is we can go back and show the process, if you wish, of the way the surveys were prepared and how they relate to that plan, and we can take it from there. But I
The
think,
only survey I've seen of this bridge went back many years at a meeting one night, Frank. And our township engineer couldn't even read the print, or what it meant. Is that a true statement? You looked in the back room there when we were sitting having a meeting, and the print they gave us, you couldn't see anything, and even our engineer was confused by this so-called print that assigned this land many, many, many years ago. Not the newest deal where they say this was all done and sealed and delivered September of 2017. I still haven't seen, and that's the point, we haven't seen a deed, a print, nothing that's our land.
The only thing that I recall, again, I was on the peripheral of this, was the wall sat on railroad property way back when.
That's what it looked like on that old print.
Right, and that's where the old wall sat, and they were responsible for building that wall because they wanted to add another track.
Exactly.
That all fits into place. But, and when it came time to buttress the old wall with the new wall that we're talking about now, the question that kept coming up was, whose property does the wall sit on? Because if we have to maintain it or own it, we're not gonna be a trespasser, if you will, right? Because it better be on our land, or we better have easements that give us rights to occupy that land with a wall and then maintain it. And again, from the drawing, I think, a set of drawings that Carlos got last week, if I recall the timeline, now shows that bump out of the right-of-way, okay? So the state has expanded the right-of-way of Lehigh Avenue, and they've supposedly delivered it to us, for lack of a better word. I don't know how.
Okay, now the million-dollar question is, can the state, do they have the ability to do that? Can they just push that on us?
Where's the deed? Don't we get a deed to this?
Well, again, we're just cracking the shell here on this.
This arrived last week. We've given it to Carl to determine whether the survey that was provided by the state meets the requirements that were in the stipulation. Okay, we have, I understand, engaged the previous structural engineer to come out to determine whether the repairs that PennDOT was required to do under the stipulation have been completed. And as Frank said, he is also preparing some baselines so we can determine whether, when going forward in the future, whether there have been changes. There has been nothing accepted from the state yet. We have received a letter, and the mayor has called several meetings and lots of telephone conversations to make certain that there's an evaluation now that the state, as this was, less than a week ago, has provided this information. And I can assure you from what the mayor's direction to everybody on the staff is, we have to go through that with a fine-tooth comb. So that's about all I can say on this, which is, about 5 days since we got the letter.
We're doing everything we can to protect the township's position, but we have an order saying, they've complied with everything they were required to comply with. We're evaluating that to determine in fact that's true. We're looking at a baseline. Should it be true ultimately upon confirmation from the structural engineer that looked at this in the past for us, to say yes or no. His position when we talked with him was, it looks like it's okay, but we'll need to review this again. This is in conversation where he was willing to offer, and please don't hang him for this, his best opinion of a long-time career as a structural engineer. He said the words, "It looks to me like," but he said, let's not jump to any conclusions until we have the final evaluation. So I don't want to hang him out here by using those words, because he was being as forthright and honest as he could be with what he has in front of him right now. So that's where it is. Please don't hang him with that. Okay, so we've been doing everything we can to get to the bottom of the situation. We have a meeting established 2 weeks from now to sit down once again to get through this whole thing, put together a plan of attack on this, and we move forward from there. And that's the best we can do at this point.
I would ask, it said 24 years from the date. I would ask that, can we stipulate when that clock starts? Because the baseline is part of that, the inspection is part of that, and the repairs have been piecemeal, it's not a bit. And the only other question, the wall is the 100-year wall and the new buttress. That's the wall proper, correct? It's not, it's not like if the old wall fails, you're on your own, but if the new wall fails, it's on.
No, they're an integrated
Great.
wall.
Thanks. It's the wall.
There's something else, or is that enough?
That's it.
Mr. Ginder?
Well, I'm just reading this, number 12, that this matter be marked closed.
That's what I read. That was the,
That's PennDOT's position. That's the way PennDOT frequently works. We're not necessarily accepting that.
Well, the way I'm reading this came from the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. Numbers 1 through 12.
Well,
That stationery says Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission.
whether what they have done is in response, completely in response to the stipulation, is something that we're reviewing, and we'll respond when that review is completed. They don't get to be the judge of whether they've done everything without some input from the township. That's our position.
Because, I read this matter's marked closed, and this is signed by Secretary Rosemary Shavetta.
And that's dated what date?
September 21st, 2017.
And
Yeah.
this is public.
Okay, that's the order saying that the stipulation which was signed, I think, in 2016, is accepted as an order of the court. Pursuant to that stipulation, which was signed in 2016 and accepted by the court as a stipulation of the parties concluding the legal matter, the court ordered them as part of the stipulation to complete the additional repairs, to pay the 1.8 million entirely by PennDOT, and so forth. Now, we are at the end of that cycle now, where they have done those additional repairs, and that final order does not refer to the letter we got last week. The letter we got last week was PennDOT saying, we've done everything that PUC order required us to do. Now we're checking to see whether in fact they did everything. So that letter did not foreclose us from judging whether PennDOT lived up to the stipulation.
Because nothing's even mentioned in here about the survey, and we were promised that in Allentown.
That's a court order adopting the stipulation. The stipulation to which that court order refers contains the survey, the requirement for the survey. You're correct, there is a requirement for the survey, and it's in the stipulation that that court order, or that PUC order, adopts.
Now, if it's found that this utility easement or maintenance easement or whatever that was put upon us, or maybe it wasn't put upon us, but if it's found that this was transferred to us, but this is not township property.
Well, we have, we're gonna have to go through this.
Right.
And come up with responses to whatever we find. I'm not ready to sit here and say what will.
Right, but I'm just throwing a hypothetical out there. Hypothetically, if this is not on township property, or this is not our land, can we take ownership of a wall that isn't on our property? Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Well, I understand what you're getting at. You can, depending upon what the stipulation says, that you can take responsibility for all kinds of things, whether it's on your property or not.
Can we not take responsibility?
I think we have to look and find out whether the survey they gave us is an appropriate survey, and as the mayor said, Carl has started looking at and looked at that, has been looking at that, and make a determination on that, make a determination of whether the repairs are appropriate, and then we can get back as to what our obligations are and to you is how we can go forward. And we have to answer that specific question. We've heard that very clearly.
We have exactly what Phil alluded to having seen, or the board having seen some time ago, which is a photograph of what is purported to be the survey of that section of the wall, the entire wall, actually. But it shows a section that goes out around, not a surveyor, not an engineer, haven't looked at this other than to see the thing, that shows this bump that would appear to go around where that wall buttressed, where they placed that. That's what is pretending to be an acceptable form of transmission of that survey. I don't know that to be true or not personally, but I'm telling you, that's all that we've seen.
That's inadequate. And I have one last question, and I'm gonna leave this go for now. This structural engineer, was this the structural engineer we used during this process?
Yes.
I wanna talk about that in executive session. From something that was said with the legal down in Allentown and PennDOT, that's a legal issue. I would wish to talk about that issue, and because of it being a legal issue in executive session.
Gotcha. Anything else? You done?
No, oh, one more thing. I read, well, this is important, you know.
Listen, that's why I asked.
We've been shimmied here a couple times on things in this township lately. I read in the mayor's report, we have 90,000 came in on delinquent garbage. I believe that was in your report, Mayor.
I think that was from Jack.
Or Jack made that comment somewhere on paperwork, and that's great, and I just wanted to say thanks for that extra effort to get some of this delinquent garbage tax in. That's important.
Well, and they're doing a great job porting off with that. Plus, it's saving us a lot of legal dollars that we would ordinarily be spending filing liens against people, and, you know, they're working hard to try and get compliance,
No,
just like
well,
they
it's a
do
great,
with real estate.
great effort by them and a great effort out of the administration to put it together and make it work. Because that's a lot of money that came in that some people just weren't gonna pay while their neighbors pay for their garbage. That's all I have, thank you.
Nothing.
Mr. Clary?
Just, I actually had a comment about that too. How much more is outstanding with the garbage? I mean, do we have an idea? Like, I wouldn't have thought it was that high, and then when I saw the number, do we have any idea?
I would think that if you look at all the prior years, you're probably looking at easily $600,000
Really?
of unpaid garbage from prior years. A lot of those are secured by liens, but like right now, you know, a lot of that stuff is gonna be done reporting off, and they have, you know, zero tolerance for people who don't pay their obligations.
That's good. All right, very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Warren?
I'll make it brief. Frank, the broken record. I know you got some feedback from PennDOT on the two projects related to Mechanicsville and MacArthur Road. The one is the sidewalk, and the other one was taking out some of those concrete rampable median to extend the turning lanes. Were they showstoppers, and will the construction happen before school opens, or is that?
I doubt that construction will happen before school opens. I mean, right now, we're working through the latest PennDOT draft to see where that came from, and we did that review, because that was a surprise. So, but as far as the two projects, I mean, on Mechanicsville and the elimination of that concrete island, those are still two very active and combined projects.
I'd like to see if we can make it happen, that the sidewalk particularly be in place before that that business opens.
Absolutely.
Because
They wanted to.
it's a safety hazard.
Too as well, so.
Right, thank you.
All the players involved wanted to happen.
Good enough for me, thank you.
Is that it? Chris, you want to give a little report on emergency management with the flooding? Prepared? Okay, that's okay. I just wanted to ask if you were here.
Put your yellow jacket on.
Yeah.
As far as I know, right now, Eberhart Road is closed, Water Street, Lehigh Street, Hockey Park is flooded again, so same issue as last Saturday.
Yeah.
I was on a call with the county. I have to get with the mayor and the staff to see if there's any, how much damage was done down in the park, because the county's gonna try to get everybody's damage in and submit it, even though it happened 2 or 3 weeks apart, put it as one big rain event.
Right.
So that happened today. We're gonna have another call tomorrow with the county, so.
I read an email that there was some damage, or there's some debris underneath the bridge there at Lehigh Street, and is PennDOT looking into?
We cleaned that out.
Oh, we took care of it, yeah.
We decided we couldn't afford to wait.
Right, okay.
So our crew went in there and cleared that out, and I think if we hadn't done that, it probably would have flooded again today. It did not flood.
But it didn't flood as bad as last?
It didn't flood, to my knowledge, as of 5 o'clock.
Okay.
I don't know that it's risen. I think it actually fell since then, and the hockey park has been inundated again, as it was last weekend. Phil was down there. We were on opposite sides of the creek waving to each other. But it was a mess. It was under, I think, 2 feet of water.
I did send photos out. Did you guys?
We got the photos, yeah.
To make sure that worked.
Yeah.
So.
And I can assure you that Hockey Park is full of pumpkins tomorrow, because they are flowing through the aqueduct as we speak.
Really?
And dozens of pumpkins.
Where are they coming from?
Ringer Road.
Field up from the back shed.
I mean, there are some funny things about it, but be safe out there. If you see that standing water, don't drive through it. Turn around. It's not worth losing your car or losing your life over.
No, obey the signs.
Absolutely.
They're up for a reason.
Absolutely. So, that's all I got. Thanks, Chris. Sorry to put you on the spot. All right.
I want to add a few things, if I may.
Sure. Well, your mayor's report's right now, so have at it.
One of the topics we wanted to discuss was the wall. Another thing, since you alluded to not driving through standing water, is we have had, because of the way the grass is growing this year, grass everywhere, all over our sidewalks and streets. And we do have a response to that comes through the police department as littering. John Rackus has been proactive and put together a little love note that when we see that, his guys are going and posting it so that we can encourage people without using a hammer to go ahead and do the right thing. And we're hoping that's going to help us. A little bit of news might be helpful to us because it's a problem. We're starting to see that there are grasses and vegetation of all sorts growing in areas that we haven't seen it previously because of the amount of grass that's being thrown out into the yard. And if you go around the township, you're going to see a lot more vegetation along the curb lines. So we're hoping that the public understands their responsibility to help keep that clear so that we don't have the problem that we're experiencing right now, and we're trying to put an end to it if we can. The other thing is, you're familiar, and I've tried to send you information over the past few months about the Riverwalk project in Allentown. I've had some concerns about it, and it was at the last minute that I submitted a letter of support for the project because I was not getting clear answers to the questions, how is this going to impact us? And I've received assurances that the plan, which is not completed at this point, is going to guarantee that we are not dumped with cars onto Fullerton Avenue, for example, without having an appropriate response on that plan. I don't know that it's going to get up here, to be honest. I have a feeling it may wind up terminating down in Allentown, but the plan that's been discussed right now and accepted and was subject to efforts to lobby for the grant funding that we needed from the feds ended at Wood Street. We don't know from PennDOT what their configuration is going to be for that jug handle coming off of 22, but I understand there's going to be a diamond created there as opposed to jug handle, and that we're going to come off in a straight line. I don't know at this point how they plan to integrate the traffic that would come off of a two-lane road, one in each direction from Allentown north. But my understanding is everybody's working to resolve that issue. Whether it happens or not, I'm optimistic, but I can't assure anything at this point because we haven't seen anything on paper. It's a $46 million project. The ask from the feds is 19 roughly. And it's going to wind up extending the trail up to Race Street, but it's also in the planning stage to see that it terminating, that two-lane road terminating at Wood Street. So I think that's a big deal for us, hoping we get that dealt with. I've also had conversations about the possibility of including the radii up at Grape Street with 3rd Street being included in this project. So we're hoping they'll extend that all the way up to there to help us with that problem too. Those are the highlights.
We do not have a treasurer's report tonight, so we will go into executive session, but I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mike. I was gonna ask about Grapevine. Talking about it, it'll get done.
Keep talking, I keep listening.
Well, it might help alleviate some of the detour traffic.
Different levels of storage area. Yes. Depending on which one.